This is really about being free to create what you want your life to look like. We each are our own hero. And how do we take the challenges that come our way and see those as the birth process of us becoming heroic? Can you meet that judgment that ultimately will surface with neutrality?
This is the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim Ann Curtin.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome back to the Wall Street Coach Podcast with me, Kim Ann Curtin, and Lucas Peterson. How are you today, Lucas?
I'm doing really well, Kim. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Today is January 20th. So it's inauguration day. It's also Tim Bowen's birthday, which we celebrated yesterday or this morning. Feels like yesterday, but it's only been a couple of hours. But you know, it just feels like fresh administration. Definitely curious how it'll all unfold. I can't pretend like I'm not happy there's a new administration. If any of you people watch me normally, you probably could guess that I probably would be more of a fan of somebody that was not the other president that we just had and said goodbye to. So on that note, the markets, how are the markets responding so far to President Joe Biden?
They seem to generally be all trending up pretty quickly. There was a little dip right before the inauguration, and then kind of has just been an upward trend since then. So that's could be a reflection of what has happened. It usually is in the world, but I think the markets love predictability and stability, and so it seems to be, as of right now, just continuing the bull run, but.
Yep.
We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll find out soon enough. This morning, I'm 5 hours behind East Coast time, so it's tricky for me early morning, especially when we record the SteadyTrade podcast, which we record about either 6:30 a.m. Hawaii time or 7:30 a.m. Hawaii time. So I hadn't peeked in on the markets yet, so I was kind of curious. So I'm glad you're keeping an eye on for me. Yeah. Plus, you're 2 hours ahead of me being in California, so
it's a little easier to get up at 5 a.m. here than it is to get up at 3 a.m. in Hawaii, probably.
3 a.m. is kind of tricky. It is kind of tricky. Although last night, for some reason, I couldn't sleep, and I was almost up till 3 a.m., so I probably should have just put up the system and see where the market was.
Yeah, you could have saw it gap up this morning. So
that's right. Exactly. So today we're going to talk, Brian Lee is an amazing trader and a friend and a very nice fan of our podcast. And he put out a tweet the other day that I wanted to talk about. And his Twitter handle, in case you want to follow him, which I recommend highly, is brianleetrades on Twitter. And he put out a hilarious link to TikTok of a guy that's a regular on TikTok or rather YouTube, doing kind of a montage of all the trading advisors or coaches that are showing up on TikTok right now. Yeah. I watched it and was just cracking up because some of them are really bad. I mean, one guy literally goes on and on about all you have to do is buy when it's low and sell when it's high. And I was just like, I mean, it's so ridiculous that somebody's actually putting a minute's worth of content on TikTok saying that unbelievable basic truth and thinking that that's enough to the audience. Yeah. But I think it's just a further evidence of this shift towards every man, every woman doing day trading. And it felt like an important topic to maybe say to everybody, be very careful with who it is that you're listening to, especially now if you've plowed into day trading like everybody else has on Robinhood. You want to be very, very careful about who you vet, who you pick as your mentor, and you have to do that by vetting them. So yeah. That's just blew me away. Did you see that clip?
Yeah, I watched it after you sent it over, and and Brian Lee, if people don't know who he is, he has some great content, his great blogs, and he's a super smart, super down to earth guy that he knows what he's doing. And it seems like from what I know about him, he primarily is a short trader, and a little more short biased.
We should have Brian on the podcast.
Yeah, we should have Brian on sometime.
That's
Talk
a good
to him.
idea. Let's do that. But Brian is a good person to listen to.
Yes, Brian knows what he's doing.
Brian knows what he's doing. And, look, there are a lot of people that know what they're doing, but I haven't watched everybody on TikTok yet, but I don't know that everybody that's on TikTok, I don't even know if there's one person that knows what they're doing on TikTok. So I'm just saying, like, you guys got to vet. So okay, we gave a shout out to Brian. Let's also give a shout out to StocksToTrade, SteadyTrade's Tim Bowen, Stephen Johnson, there's so much content that's free on YouTube, on iTunes. We've done now, I've been with them now for the past year and a half. They were out probably about a year, maybe a year and a half before I came on. So that's almost 3 years worth of content that is so incredibly valuable. Tim Sykes gives out excellent content. Who's somebody else? Oh, TrueTrader gives out excellent content. Adriano, shout out to you, and Benito, and Dan, who's part of their program. There are really good people out there, but you got to find, you can go look at any of the people I've just mentioned, but anybody that you're going to listen to, if they make it sound too easy, I promise you, they're not telling you the straight shit. Yeah. Or they don't even know what they don't know, which is what we talked about last time, right? Unconscious incompetence. There's probably plenty of those right now. So please, buyer beware.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say one thing in particular is all these people who we just mentioned aren't people who are just like on Twitter or on TikTok just telling you this is the symbol to buy or whatever, because they're not telling you like how to trade or what to follow a plan, but like trying to teach you how and giving advice on what they've done in the past. And I think that's a big, you can see, in my mind, it's easy to see the difference there. If somebody's just like posts on Twitter, I'm long 5,000 shares of XYZ. And then, 5 minutes later it dumps. It's probably because they have a chat and they're pumping it. And then they just tweeted it out to all the people that don't pay for their chat. And then they just short on the backside.
Exactly.
So you have to be aware of just there's a lot that goes on in the markets that is pretty shady. So it's pretty
shady.
Yeah.
Pretty shady. And you saw was it last week we were talking about this on SteadyTrade too, was the conversation. They hired Carol Baskin from Tiger Kings to do
Zom.
Did you see that?
Yeah, Zom. It was crazy. I mean, I was in Zom. There was no reason not to be, because that's that's just how the market works right now. And and it was, so it hit $1 billion in volume. And one of the plans that I have is if there's a few criteria and $1 billion volume, like it will almost certainly gap up the next morning. And it did. And it's 20%. It's based on nothing, right? Just because of what Petco was going public. And so there was like that was nuts. It was nuts. It's dumb. It's a crazy market right now. And this is another thing we want to talk about, is just like the bull market makes everybody look smart, right? Like
it does.
And that's, I think, a difficult part for a lot of people who are short biased right now is things just don't die. They should. Yep. There's no reason they should be up.
Yep.
There's something up this morning. What was it? OBLN. They just announced a merger, and they went from like 250 at the open to up. I think the highest I saw was 1077. And it's like, it's a small float, but it's like, there's no reason. And it just was grinding. Like, it wasn't like a pop. It was grinding all day. It was nuts.
My God. What the hell? This is why everybody, you have to be cautious, because and even a tweet this morning that Bowen sent to both Stephen and I, he's like, this guy, he just doesn't understand how it works. And that's, I think that's the hardest part of this game, is that people think it's a quick, they could potentially get a quick hit of making money, that they can do this easy and quick and short. And it's just not the way the market works. It may for a while, but it's not going to work like that forever. And you still have to understand what it is you're doing.
Yeah. And that's one concern that I have for, I think a lot of people, especially like newer traders, is like
Yeah,
not understanding if people don't know what like a stop loss is,
exactly.
and you get in with one of these, like I was saying, like a pump and dump, and you're on the top of that, and you, just because you don't know, I mean, you could be, now you're invested in some shitty stock for, that's going to be, it might go up again, but if you bought the very top of something, I mean, there's some real shitty stocks out there that were up in like 2017 that were like at $15 and now they're at $1. And so like, imagine if you held, and they're just never going to reclaim that.
No, never. Yeah. And that's why I think, it is tempting as it probably is now more than ever because of TikTok, certainly because of Robinhood. The access to everybody is just it's so easy. Like you just really don't have to do anything but swipe your phone and bam, there you are. But there are repercussions and costs and that you just haven't yet realized. And we're hoping to just protect you from making those costly mistakes.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line.
And I think also this can transcend into any topic, right? like around like a coach like you or myself, like look at who they are and like do you have a conversation with them if you can. That's around right. And to see what they're all about, and if you guys mesh together. I think that's really important, and just in general in life, right? Like you are a combination of the people around you, so
that's right.
Try to be mindful of what those people care about and priorities, values,
and their experience in literal form. Like I remember Josh Brown in my book Transforming Wall Street, in the conversation I had with him, he said, his dad had introduced him, to basically a boiler room kind of broker, and what he was doing, he didn't really know it was wrong because his dad introduced him to the guy. And he saw this guy doing certain things that he was like, oh, I guess that's what successful people do. He was so young and naive and inexperienced that he didn't have a really good ruler of what criteria to use to measure the people that he was being introduced to. He just thought, oh, well, they're adults or they're rich. So I guess they know what they're doing. And in fact, I just read a book over the weekend from Jay Michaels. He was the co-founder of FUBU clothing. And he talked about the book. I got to get the book up. He was talking about too, that, he's a boy from Queens. He has this, incredible successful company. He has so much money. And he said the financial mistakes that he made, thinking that he had to treat everybody like he'd have this big posse come into a big club in New York. And he was like, oh, I have to pay for them because that's what successful people do. But clubs in New York City, the bottle service is like, let's say it's a $50 bottle of vodka or even $200 bottle of vodka. They're going to charge $2,000 a bottle, just to get the table. So it's the idea of he didn't even have anybody kind of guiding him. And he just thought, well, this is what I guess I'm supposed to do. And so it was just a fascinating story of oh, I see now how somebody just could easily, without having the right kind of friends around you and the people around him too. He gave jobs to a friend from the neighborhood who was a big guy to be his bodyguard, not necessarily the best bodyguard, right? Because does that guy even know how to protect somebody? What are you looking for? There's just, and this is just naivete. It's not that anybody isn't smart. It's just that if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I think this could be a broader conversation around consciousness as well, right? It's just knowing, instead of just existing and kind of I should go there, think about why am I going there, or why am I doing this? Exactly. And that's more living with intention. And I think that if you can get to that base level, then I think everything gets a little bit easier. But that requires a lot of work and a little conversations in your head, like, why am I doing this? What is this serving?
So true. It's so true. What happened is, let's just see here, J. Alexander Michael, that's his name. And he wound up reading, actually, I do some work with Wall Street Bound, Troy Prince's amazing organization in New York City. Shout out to Wall Street Bound. If you guys don't know what they do, definitely look them up. They are all about trying to help, urban kids, Black and brown kids get into Wall Street, get into those front offices, because they just aren't there right now. They're not represented. And the people at the top of the food chain say, well, we just don't get enough resumes from them. And that is not actually true. So Wall Street Bound is all about really empowering and giving the skills, again, not just the skill set of what it takes to be successful as a trader in Wall Street, but also for research departments, administrative kind of roles. All of these it's a culture, right? And I remember learning this too early on when I was doing research for Transforming Wall Street, the book that I wrote, talking to what I noticed early on was that so many of the people that were on Wall Street and that specifically worked on the trading floor were all kind of blue collar guys that had come from fathers who had been police officers, fathers that had been firefighters. And it was really friends of friends that got them their first opportunity. And it wasn't, I have to say, I didn't even run into, and this, you figure if I'm in my 50s, these people were probably in their 50s and 60s. Going back, it wasn't even the college you went to. It was actually who you knew and who had an opportunity. And so that is part of what Troy's, kind of premises around Wall Street Bound is we don't have those connections, these young people who are growing up in an inner city or in, places where they don't have access to that same kind of collection of people. And that keeps them from having the opportunities because it is really about who you know. So during Wall Street Bound, we did, there was a collaboration with St. Francis College, and some of these young people, we were doing a webinar, and I met this amazing man who I want to give a shout out to. His name is Ted McLyman, who I got to meet during Wall Street Bound. We did an event for the youngsters. These are all young people coming out of college looking for opportunities. And Ted and I really connected over our relationship to money and how important that is, and how important that is to even those who work in Wall Street, those who work in finance. Because if you don't have your relationship to money really defined and clean, and not with resentment or old kind of how do I describe it? It's like there are little disconnections along the money train if your parents had a certain relationship to money that you haven't cleaned up yet. And Ted and I really agreed about the importance of the relationship to money. And so he wound up sharing with me that he had written a book with J. Alexander Martin called Money Makes Me Crazy, How I Squandered Millions of Dollars Building the For Us, By Us Empire, FUBU. So there's a cover of the book. It's such a great read because you can see he was really at an early age. He even talked about when he was a little boy and he was saving up his money. Like, he really liked good clothing. He was really into clothing, and he felt that the clothing kind of, made a statement for him, which I totally agree with, by the way. But then at some point, he gets into the military and he had like 5 suits, he said, or 4 suits in like his trunk, and he couldn't even wear them because he had to wear his uniform. And he said, I spent all this money on these suits that I couldn't even wear. And he wound up meeting Ted, and Ted, I think he wound up having a friend give Ted's book to him. And when he read that book, he was like, holy crap, I have to kind of design, what is this relationship that I have to money? What does it look like? I have to kind of pull it apart. And he wound up reaching out to Ted and saying, hey, let's write this book together called Money Makes Me Crazy. Because, GA was really starting to see, okay, I could have done much better with my money along the way. And the concept that you spoke to about how we are the average of the 5 people around us financially, professionally, personally. This is why it's so important to just be really discriminatory in the people you bring into your life by way of the example that they are living. And I think, this is important too. There are successful people that you may see around you, somebody driving a Lamborghini, somebody who seems to, have all the trappings of success, or what is also called the golden handcuffs. But look underneath that, because I promise you, even that conversation we had with JJ Gorilla from Confessions of a Market Maker, he said, I had 5 of those cars in my garage, the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, the Maserati, 5 of those in his garage. And he was in this palatial home overlooking a river, this gorgeous view, and he was miserable. So not just that they have the trappings of success or what the world says is success or even what you think is success, but look behind the scenes. Like he said in that moment, he was like, does my wife even love me? Like, you want to look behind just the trappings of wealth for true success. Does the person seemingly have equanimity? Is a person in a loving relationship with at least their children, if not, their partner? Like, do they have joy and equanimity at 3 o'clock in the morning when they can't sleep? And if they can't, like, what's keeping them up? Like, look underneath the pretty white picket fence, so to speak, and make sure that person, because if you want to emulate somebody or follow in somebody's footsteps, you want, and I'm not saying anybody's going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? But you want to be conscious of the people you're following and what their lifestyle looks like, because you will wind up creating that lifestyle for yourself.
Yeah. If you, I think, touched on a few things there that people should be aware of is, one, the idea with your relationship to money, that is you. I think that took me a long time to like understand, but I was, I like out of college, I graduated, and then I started making a little bit more money than I, had before. And then a few years later, and it was basically the same for a few years. And it's like, what's going on? It's supposed to go up. And so I thought about it, and then it basically like doubled. And then, and then, and you have to just be aware of like, is this the amount of money right now that I want? Am I comfortable with this? Am I holding myself back? Like, what are the reasons you're there? And then also, looking around at the people around you, because they're probably, if you work a day job, they're probably your friends that work that day job. They may be people from college that have a job that's similar to yours, or maybe it's not. But if you are around people that have more money, I have noticed in my life, you tend, all of a sudden, like your mind expands to the possibility of making more money.
Absolutely true. And it doesn't mean that I'm an advocate of kicking to the curb, your friends who are not making bank. That's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah. But you got to realize that, we're tribal creatures. And I think it's understandable that if we're with people who have never experienced great wealth, or especially if you're a trader, the times when you can have great wealth quickly, overnight, so to speak, then you potentially do run into that feeling of, will I be alienated from these people? If I want to share my good news, I want to share the abundance that I have, but I also don't know if they're going to handle that well. We don't know. Even if people love us, doesn't mean they don't feel jealous of us, or they don't feel threatened by us. I just remember that when I took a year off from drinking, just for my own body, I was working out really intensely with a trainer at the time, and he was like anti-alcohol, kept telling me every time I saw him 3 times a week it was poison. So finally I was like, fine, Dan, I'm going to stop drinking.
He's not wrong.
He's like, he just was so like a fundamentalist about not drinking. And he was probably right. He probably still is right. But that whole year, every time I walked into a restaurant or bar with my friends and I didn't have a drink, everybody would be triggered. Not everybody,
you could like feel the judgment though, right?
I could feel the judgment. or I felt they thought I was judging them for drinking.
The other way.
I don't drink that much, Kim. I just have a couple of drinks, and I'm like, I don't really care how often you drink. Like, why are you defending your drinking to me? And then other people are like, yeah. Oh, so what did you do this for? Because you have a problem? Everybody had to hang it on something. And I was like, no, I actually working out with a trainer. He really wants me to stop the booze, see what happens. And I was just like, wow, everybody is triggered by this. So how much more? We all know that money is the biggest triggering force on the planet. How much more are people going to potentially be triggered if you suddenly do make bank, or if you suddenly find yourself in a very different kind of position and lifestyle? And I can think back to when I started working at the hedge fund, I also got a sign-on bonus. And I can remember just my own discomfort with being able to, of all the things, there was like a lipstick that I wanted that was very expensive. I'm a little embarrassed to say how expensive it was, but it was $40. And I really wanted this lipstick for whatever reason, the color, the brand, who knows. But I remember being in a position to buy that lipstick. And in the past, I would be counting my pennies to get a $7 lipstick. And I remember thinking, I'm not in Kansas anymore. Like my whole life had shifted. And it was a little intimidating at first. And I remember wanting to not talk about it to some of my friends because I didn't know if they would judge me for spending that much on this lipstick. So I think it's just important to realize that you are going to be impacted by that. T. Harv Eker, in his book, The Millionaire Mind, calls it a temperature set. We all have a temperature set around money, what feels comfortable. And if we don't look at that, we don't investigate that, open up the hood of that, then we're going to potentially be in unconscious alliance with that perspective. And that can sabotage traders. I've definitely seen that when traders are new and they find themselves perhaps making way more money they could have ever imagined, they can at times unconsciously self-sabotage to keep the tribe around them happy, or because they feel like they're not worthy of that much success. And then they'll go on a losing streak to get them back to center. So just keep that in mind that, have you done work on your money? I'm a huge fan of that book, moneyharmony.com. She has an online assessment. I've sent that to clients on occasion, which helps you understand what your money type is, which again, and so does Ted. Ted's book, I can't recommend enough, besides this one that he wrote with Jay, his first book to Ted McLyman, his first book is called... we'll have to get that titled to you guys. We'll put that in the liner notes. But Ted's first book is the one that Jay read, Jay Alexander Martin, and he was like, holy crap, I really have to do some investigation around my opinion and relationship to money. So, yeah.
We also, it's interesting to think about like just the way you view your own worth and how you match up in society. Like we all just look around and you look at your neighbors, you look at the people on TV, and like you kind of slot yourself into these different parts. I mean, we could go into a really long conversation about like how that plays out as far as like race and demographics, and but that's a different thing. But within wealth as well, if you're not aware of it, like you'll just set to the default.
For sure.
And so I think it's important to take some time, and if not like journal and write down these things, to at least like take 10, 15 minutes, just sit and think about it, kind of meditate on the ideas of where you are and where you want to be.
What success means to you. What does wealth mean to you? Who was it recently? I don't know if it was you and I speaking about it. Maybe you told me this, Lucas, where you said that money shouts, but wealth whispers. Was that a Charlie Munger quote?
No, it was just, I don't know who said it, but it's money talks, quote. But wealth whispers.
Yeah. And I think that, I've had an unusual life personally, because my, my parents got divorced when I was 8, and I really experienced 2 extreme different households. So my mom was, single mom, struggling to make ends meet. And I had qualified for like a free lunch card in school. But my dad's lifestyle was radically different. And I had, one of the things back in the 80s, the hot pair of pants were the Calvin Klein, jeans. And I had a velvet Calvin Klein set of jeans, which were like, my favorite pants in the world to this day. Because there's just like such a big hullabaloo at the time.
You still have
Calvin
them?
Klein. No, I really, really did try to keep them for many years though. But at some point I was never getting back into them. So I was like, I'm going to have to let them go. But God, did I love those pants. Because they felt so cool. I felt cool in those pants, in high school. It's all about what makes you feel cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I just remember though, because I sometimes I would leave certain clothes at my dad's, but I brought those pants, with me back from the weekend because I wanted to wear them. And I remember having them on when I showed the lunch lady my free lunch card. Now, these were very expensive pants. Everybody would have known that probably back then, or at least this lunch lady did. And I remember she took my card and she kind of looked me up and down like, what the hell? How can this girl afford these pants and be also giving me a free lunch card? So I think then maybe I was like 14, 15 years old. That was a critical moment for me where I really got, wow, people are going to have a judgment about, this and this. And I think I also realized early on, wow, they have to be in sync for people to not give you the kind of dirty look she gave me. Mm-hmm. So I think because of that moment and lots of other stories and experiences I've had on both sides of the track, so to speak, it is definitely one that is worth doing some homework around. And, trust me, guys, I have worked with people from all sides of the equation. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. It doesn't matter if you have no home. You're going to have some stuff around money. And it's really important that you do the work to understand what the default settings are that you inherited from the family that raised you and their belief systems around money. So yeah, it's pretty important. Yeah.
We've talked about this as well, but like money is the number one emotional driver, like more than love, more than sex, more than like hatred of another football team or anything. That's right. That one's kind of a joke, but it is. And that's why a lot of people, especially beginners, have a difficult time trading, I think, is because, when you have to put on, like if you're, you take $100 and you put it on a trade and it's like, oh shit, that's like my money.
That's right. That's right.
And like some people freak out. And, yeah, exactly. And that's why people are so good at paper trading. And as soon as you put money on it, and the same thing happens when you start scaling up in size, if you get comfortable at 100, then you go to 1,000 and then that's terrifying. And then you go to, 5,000, that's terrifying. And it just is the same thing over and over. And you have to conquer that. Or in my mind, it's a lot easier if you just look at the percentages. As long as you keep your percentages, then you take money, not out of the situation, but like mentally you can shift it a little bit. So you're just looking at the percentage and you don't look at, as it's going up or as it's going down. You don't look at that loss in the dollars. You look at it in the percentage.
I think that's just baking into the recipe the fact that you're going to not be rational about money once you see those dollar signs and working with the system as we're built. We're built to be triggered, and that saved our asses on the Serengeti back in the day, but it's not going to save you now as a trader. And that concept, like you can fight City Hall, but why would you want to? Like, this is how we're built. So how do you work with that and work around that? It's like a pothole in the street. You don't drive into the pothole. You want to drive around the pothole as best you can without hitting another car, or another car parked in the street. But you have to be aware that those potholes are there. And I think that's really important. And I remember too, one of the guys I interviewed also in my book was John Bogle, who was the founder of Vanguard. And Bogle tells his story. He has a great book, by the way, called Enough. Read this many years ago. It's a short book. His books are all really long, but his one book, Enough, is not that long, actually. They're like really thick books. And I met John Bogle. This is just a testament to his incredible work ethic. This was a man who was, I guess, in his 90s, and I had reached out in July, somewhere, maybe the end of June, July, and they said I could come in on the 4th of July to interview him. I was like, why is John Bogle, this 90-year-old man who's running Vanguard, working on a weekend? I think it was a weekend. If it wasn't a weekend, it was, obviously a holiday. But because this man loved what he did. He loved what he did. So I drove to, the Vanguard offices from New Jersey. It was like, a good 3-hour drive. And there he was. There was like one poor secretary. He had like one security guard in the whole building. It was so funny.
Just for him.
Just for him. And, he was just so gracious. And it was just an amazing, probably one of the most amazing interviews that I did in person for that book. And his book, Enough, I had read, obviously, in preparation for that conversation. And there's the reason he came up with that title was he's talking about a party, I think, that he's at, and a couple of other, probably famous people, authors in particular, that were there, writers. And one of the billionaires at this big, extravaganza was talking about, all the different things that he had. And this one author, I probably, should know who he is, but it's almost irrelevant to the story. And then he said to this hedge fund manager, well, I have something that you'll never have. And the guy's like, really? What's that? And he said, enough. And it was just this like, whoa, powerful, powerful story that made me really it just put the emphasis on what is enough for you? And I guess I'm going to just ask that of our listeners now and our viewers. What does enough look like for you? And if you don't have that defined, I'd recommend you get that. Because with that wealth and with that lifestyle of working hard, there is a cost. There is a cost to your personal life, to potentially your relationships with your family members, relationship to downtime. Like, there is a cost. And I'm not implying that people that work a lot necessarily are paying that cost, but for them, their success is probably with the work they're doing. I'm part of this new app called Clubhouse, which I really like. If you guys can get on it too. I think right now it's invitation only. But if I was on Grant Cardone's room, and I've heard of Grant, I've heard his name for years, never read anything from him, never really got to know him. But I was riveted last night in his Clubhouse room. He hosted a room on Clubhouse called the 10X room, and he was in there, I think, for 4 or 5 hours. I got in 2 hours. I think I was in there myself 2 or 3 hours. Wow. Till the end. And he's on East Coast time. He's based in Florida. It had to be, I think by the time he finished, 12:30 at night, he and his wife, plus thousands of people who were in Clubhouse who were getting opportunity to pitch him, which was absolutely incredible. I mean, where else in all these centuries can you potentially pitch a multimillionaire, if not a billionaire, just because you clicked the button at the right. It was just like crazy. But, so here's this guy clearly had worked a full day. His whole team had worked a full day, and they're all in this conversation to 12:30 at night. Now, what I got from that last night was he loves what he does. He loves the hustle. He loves the conversations with people. He was looking for people to invest in. He was looking for people to support and encourage. He gave this one man who was like raising money to put laptops, Chrome laptops in front of like young kids who don't have the money. He gifted him, I think, 1,000 laptops just because the guy like had the guts to raise his hand. Like that is a person that is working a lot, but like it's who he is. It's what makes him feel happy and joy. Seems to me, they talked a lot about like these organizations that seem to mean a lot to him, of kids that don't have fathers. So I imagine, this is speculation on my part, that maybe that was his experience growing up, you know? So it's like there are, and me, I work crazy hours and sometimes that's a problem, you know? I need to learn how to take more time off, but I love what I do. Yeah. Like it's what I'm born for, right? So enough, for me, enoughness isn't based on my bank account. For me, enoughness is, have I touched as many people as I can? Have I given these tools to as many people as I can? So figure out what your enough is, people, and then let me know. I'd like to know what your enough is. How about you? What's your enough, Lucas?
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking about this recently, and it's, you know, the biggest thing for me is like healthy relationships with the people closest to me, like just like truly loving and healthy, communicating, open-hearted, vulnerable, like being able to be vulnerable and being safe with those people. That's what enough is for me, because then it allows me, it gives me the confidence to be that way with everyone in the world. And I think that we can all use a little bit more, empathy and vulnerability in the world. We don't all have to be like we talk about often. We don't all have to be the biggest, the bravest, the strongest, the smartest people in the room. Like it's okay to just be who you are. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. So that's my long-winded answer.
It wasn't long-winded. It was very, very powerful and very succinct. I think it's really beautiful what you said, and it made me become more aware too of like how I don't know that I probably even have been conscious of how important those relationships with those who are closest to me is. And that just makes me, in that moment you said that, it made me feel wealthier because I have them, and because they're good, and because they know that I love them, and I know that they love me, right? So those people that are in my life, like it just made me realize, oh, I have another bank account over here that I didn't even remember to check. That's what it feels like. You know? And this morning too, you know, it was Tim Bowen's birthday. So on the SteadyTrade podcast, which I'm a co-host of, if you guys don't know that, check me out over there on the SteadyTrade platform. And, you know, one of the things I wanted to give Tim was a sense of like the impact he's had. So this amazing company called Tribute does these collections of videos. You record a minute of yourself saying thank you to the person or wishing them a happy birthday for whatever special occasion it is. And then they put them all together. You can help edit them and put pictures in. It's a really amazing platform, especially in coronavirus time. It's a great way to honor somebody if you can't be there in person. Anyway, we I sent this out. Shay, the amazing Wonder Woman at StocksToTrade, sent it out to some of the traders that, you know, Tim has worked with over the years, and they all recorded these amazing 1-minute snippets of them showing so much gratitude to him. So we were Stephen and I interviewed him this morning for his birthday, you know, put him in the hot seat and said, for your birthday, we're going to talk to you about you. And there's this one moment where, you know, you guys have to watch the episode, but I was asking Tim just about, you know, different things that he's journeyed through in his life and what matters the most to him. And he talked about being a contribution. And then he wound up telling a story about when he was a little league coach, how there was this young man there who, you know, mom would drop him off and not even say hello to the coach, like, you know, basically just not a big presence in his life. And it was, you know, he showed up throwing the ball with the mitt because he really had no idea how to play. No idea how to play. And he said by the end of the season, you know, we won the championship. It was just, everybody's happy. And the kid's like, what time is practice tomorrow? And Tim's like, oh, no, honey, we're done, like for the season. And the kid just was so upset and so disappointed. And Tim told the story and was choked up by remembering this incident with this boy, and started to get really emotional because he just could remember what that was like for this kid. And yet, I was trying to say, like, all those months prior, you changed that boy's life, even if it didn't get to continue through the summer. You still had this huge impact on him. So that is wealth, in my opinion, right?
Yeah,
the wealth
absolutely.
that he knows he changed that boy's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and I think that we can kind of bring that back to, like, I don't know, pay attention to who your teachers are, right?
Yes.
And like, what do they provide to the world? What is in it for them? Like, are they doing it just to get your money, or are they doing it because they're passionate about what they're doing and they want to share their knowledge with others? Correct.
Or their ego,
absolutely.
And Grant Cardone, the little bit that I knew about him, he seemed a little, kind of very confident in himself and everything. But I'll tell you, listening to him last night for 2 or 3 hours in that room, I heard a man who had been through hell and back. I heard a man that gave a shit about the people. I mean, he was eating his dinner at like 9:30 at night, trying to still be of support to people. And he was telling people when he couldn't be, and he told people when he could. And then he'd have his team reach out to other people, help this guy with that. Let's see if we can get that. He said yes to 1 million podcasts, to the point where I thought, if I wrote him the email address he shared in that room and just said, hey, you said yes to me, he probably wouldn't even know. But I would never do that. But I was tempted. I'm like, he probably won't even know. He said yes to like 14 podcast invites last night.
We can write him another time.
We'll write. I'll write him and say, I heard you say yes to 14 people. What's one
more? You want to say yes to 5 to 15? That's funny.
So, but like, I heard this guy, I didn't hear this man last night have an ego. I heard this man wanting to be a contribution to people. And so I would say, vet your mentors. Do they really want to be that contribution? And if they do, then it's a good mentor to follow.
Yeah. Great. I think we can probably wrap it up with there. Okay. That was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we mentioned a lot of different, we went in a lot of different places, it seems like today, but ultimately what we're saying is, yes, day trading is blowing up. It's on the TikTok, as some of the older people say. Don't trust the TikToks without vetting them. Don't really, you got I love Ayn Rand, and she has a great quote that says, she took the judge not lest ye be judged quote, and she turned it on its head. And she says, judge and prepare to be judged, which I can subscribe to in this situation, because you do want to be discriminatory in the people you let into your head, into your heart, into your wallet, and into the choices you make. So vet them. Make sure that these are people, I think I talked about this before, that a friend of mine reached out one day because she saw an opportunity to start trading cryptocurrency on Facebook. I was just like, good God, please don't do that. No. She's like, oh, but the lady's making money all the time. I'm like, nobody makes money all the time except the Bernie Madoffs of the world. Yeah. And you don't want to get yourself down. You want to study day trading? Perfect. I'll put you in touch with people, but don't be following some chickadee on Facebook who is probably not telling you the whole story.
Yeah. And then until you do research and understand how blockchain works, I don't think you should be throwing money at it. In general, just know what you own. Know what you own, right? It's not that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's Warren Buffett's advice. Just know what you're about to get involved with. And if you don't know it, then start to study. And then get to know it. And if that's where you want to go, great. But spend the time and energy reading the books or following the right people on YouTube to learn enough about it before you go and sink your hard-earned cash into it.
Yeah.
So with that closing bit of wisdom, we will wrap it up. And I ask you guys, please, if you like what we have to say today and you think it's worthy of 5 stars, please do that on iTunes and or YouTube. It really makes a difference, believe it or not, for the rankings. And we haven't had anybody review us on iTunes in over a year, Lucas. So let's hope somebody will take a liking to that. And ask you guys to please put in the comments what you do want me to talk about. I was also thinking about maybe doing some speed coaching once in a while, if not on this podcast, maybe on some other quick 15-minute podcast. So if anybody wants some speed coaching and you're a trader, hit us up and let us know. info@thewallstreetcoach.com is one email you can use for sure. So we'll say, a hui ho for now, which is what we say in Hawaii when we say till we meet again. And is there any last words you want to say, Lucas?
No, that's great. Don't trust the TikTokers.
Don't trust the TikTokers. All right. Aloha, everybody. And we'll see you again next time on The Wall Street Coach. Thank you for watching.
This has been the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim Ann Curtin. You can find out more about her and her team online at thewallstreetcoach.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you for listening.